Hey College Success, this is your video for week 11, running from November 9th through the 15th. I feel like we're really starting to kind of go quickly now as we're approaching the end of the semester. So hopefully things are going well for everyone and that you're over the midterm hump by now and like all those projects and papers are done and you're probably gearing up looking toward finals. But it's an exciting time. I think the semester kind of flies by quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and before I get into week 11, I'm just going to remind you that your final project folder is open. So I'm going to click in there and that's where you'll find another copy of the directions and the rubric that I will use to grade your project when you turn it in. So far, I have already opened steps 1 and 2, so you can get started. By the time you view this video, steps 3 and 4 will have been opened. And then in week 12 is when I open up step 5. And then I do a project review as well so that you can kind of get it all in one piece. And then ultimately you will see a Dropbox in the same area, which is where you can submit your final project. So I just want to encourage you. I know you have until the end of the semester, but because this is week 11, things are going to move quickly, and some of you may have some other exams and projects going on. I hate to have you get overwhelmed, so it's a great time to practice that time management. A lot of the concepts in our chapters talk about time management, chunking, not procrastinating, so it's a great time to put that into practice. All right, so we are going to scroll down to week 11. We are starting chapter 5. There's only 7 chapters. So we are in chapter 5 already, and you can see you have 2 assignments this week associated with that chapter. But first we're going to get into the materials folder, and I'm going to pull up the slideshow. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the concepts of chapter 5 here. So chapter 5 wants to know the purpose of academic tasks, meaning like why do we have to be assessed, essentially, the different kinds of things and how we're assessed in our classes. Well, the big picture is because each of you are in a specific program. That's kind of like the umbrella, the nursing program, the IT program, and it's a really broad name for that. And then you have course level. So every single course that you take has to have certain objectives met, certain outcomes have to come from that because they have a program level outcome. And all of that leads to being able to graduate. So that's kind of the big picture why. But also, I think if you view kind of assessments, whether that is an actual test, a project, a paper, as ways to demonstrate what you know, it can become a little less stressful. I mean, I get it. It's still stressful, but kind of trying to think of it in a way as, you know what, this is just an opportunity for me to demonstrate what I know, what I can convey, what I understand. Part of that is having academic integrity. So what is academic integrity? And why does it matter? Well, academic integrity is, if you're familiar with just integrity, being ethical, being honest, this is going to apply to your work. So you're not doing things that are going to tarnish the work that you turn in, because it really does matter, character, hopefully personally, and then kind of making sure that you're reflecting your institution and your courses and your degree in a positive way. So what is academic dishonesty? How do you not uphold academic integrity? Well, you can kind of big 2 categories here. Plagiarize, which is presenting someone else's work as your own, which can be like really straightforward. You copy and paste someone else's work, or whether it's the internet or someone does your work and you put your name on it. Sometimes plagiarism is not as obvious. It's maybe just not citing a source because you don't know how or you forgot. So that's still considered plagiarism. And then cheating, any activity that gives you or another student an unfair advantage. So that could be something as simple as like, hey, I know you have this professor, on Thursday, I just had her today, here's what was on the test. So it kind of seems harmless, but that's actually giving someone else an advantage. And then of course, more obvious forms like taking in a cheat sheet or using resources you're not allowed. So how can you avoid being academically dishonest? Well, you want to know what it means to plagiarize and cheat so you can avoid doing that. Keeping your goal in mind so that you can always, okay, you know what? My goal is to get a degree and become, a business management. I want to go into HR, because once you get into your career, if you were academically dishonest all throughout your college career, that's not going to serve you well when you get into your actual field. And then preparing for exams, using time management so that you are getting those assignments done and you're taking time with the material, knowing how to cite sources, and if you're not sure, using the resources at the college. And that's the purpose of all the reflections I have you do, is so that you know what resources are there. And I was really pleased as I was reading your week 9 Writing Center reflections, there were quite a few people who said, I actually already used the Writing Center this semester. And so that was nice to see that people are utilizing these resources. All right, so citing sources, the general rule is you want to cite all ideas unless they are original to you or they're considered general knowledge. So really, really basic example, the sky is blue. You wouldn't have to cite that. That's general knowledge. But you do want to give credit to a source. Let's say you read it and you're like, oh man, I really like this. I'm going to go ahead and paraphrase it, put it in my own words. You still have to cite that. Even though you didn't copy it, quote, word for word, you still have to cite where you got that information. And so that comes in paraphrasing. What is paraphrasing? It's summarizing ideas in your own words. It's not just taking 1 or 2 words and changing them. It is really putting them in your own words and then giving credit to that particular source. And so just a quick couple places I wanted to pull up. I always go, now if you recall from my intro, I have a doctorate, so I went through the whole dissertation process and years of APA. And it's been a few years now. I graduated in 2017 with my doctorate. So it's been a couple years since I've done heavy writing where I have to really get in the nitty gritty. So I really do still consult the APA OWL at Purdue whenever I have to cite something, because I just want to double check, oh, I can't remember what spacing I have to use here or what's italicized. And so I do cite this source. If anyone is taking academic writing right now, they may have additional resources for you. So the OWL at Purdue is one that I always recommend to students because it is your guideline. It's your style guide. So over on the left-hand side, there's an introduction and then goes into depth over here. How do you cite if you're quoting someone in text? If you are creating a reference list at the end of your paper, what about a book versus a website? So this really goes into depth there. A lot of students also like to use Citation Machine, which OWL at Purdue started embedding into one of their home pages. It's been there a couple times. The only thing I will kind of draw your attention to on sources like this, they are great to help you build a citation, but then you just want to double check, does this look right? Is the spacing correct? So you just want to do a glance over, did they capitalize and italicize where it needed to be? So sources like Citation Machine are really helpful to helping you build and get used to creating citations, but you still want to double check against making sure that everything looks okay. And we're going to talk more about that in step 5 of your final project. All right, so from there, another way that you can be assessed beyond, taking these steps and making sure that you're being honest, one of the ways you can be assessed is papers and presentations. And so sometimes you may have an instructor who says, okay, you have your research paper due at the end of the semester, you get to choose your own topic within the, if you're taking a psychology class, it just has to do something with psychology. And that can sound great, but then it can also be overwhelming. And so if you're in a situation like that, there are certain things you can do to help you choose your topic. Look through your text and see what kind of information is in there. Do a quick Google search and see what is out there on certain topics in this example, psychology. Ask your instructor to help you narrow down. Look at a population. So maybe in psychology, you want to look at a specific population. Maybe you want to focus on people right now who are experiencing depression because of COVID. That would really focus it down. So look at populations or ages or questions. So that's one way of kind of looking at that topic. When you go to actually write, there is a writing process, which I'm sure most of you are already familiar with from previous experience. The first part is picking your topic, or maybe it's assigned to you, but then developing that topic, getting your sources ready, coming up with outlines, taking notes. And then you go into the actual writing where you're going to kind of flesh out your ideas, add details, make sure everything is correlating back to the original prompt, and then reviewing. So you're going to spend time revising and proofreading. And this is a cycle because after you get here, you might have to go back to this part and then go back and forth. And then part of this last part is also maybe doing some peer review, going to the Writing Center, as well as adding in your citations. So you always want to make sure you leave enough time for that last part. I have a lot of students who admittedly will wait and finish a paper like the night before or even the morning of, and so they don't have time to revise. They don't have time to go back and look. So you want to make sure you have time to edit and proofread. So edit is when you're looking at like those nitty-gritties. Did I spell everything correctly? Is my grammar and punctuation okay? Proofread is more of like that big picture. When you're revising, you're looking at and seeing, okay, do all my ideas flow together? Is it organized well? Do I need to add or take away? So that proofreading section of revision is more big picture, where when you're editing, it's those little tiny details. And so you want to make sure you leave time for that and make sure you have all your citations in and give yourself an opportunity to allow someone else to look at your work. I always like to have another pair of eyes on my writing, even though sometimes I second guess my writing. It's still better for someone else to look at it and give me some feedback. And then you may also have to do some presentation. So as a professional in your field, you may have to present, and it may not even be like a formal PowerPoint presentation. You may just have to talk during a meeting, or you may have a group of clients or some patients. So you still have those public speaking skills come into handy. And I don't know, I've only met a few people who like public speaking, they love it. And it doesn't make them anxious at all. And for everyone else, it seems that there's at least a little bit of nerves. And so what's the best way is to prepare and practice. One of the worst things you can do is come to a presentation, whether it's for work or school, and then kind of read off the PowerPoint word for word. Then it's obvious that you haven't prepared. So prepare, practice, get notes cards, review the presentation, do a practice audience, whatever that might be. When you speak, the golden rule is kind of tell the audience what you're going to say it, and then recap it. You also want to make sure you engage the audience, so ask them questions, tell a story or a statistic, have them turn and talk to each other. And then these next couple of slides are if you have to utilize a PowerPoint. So the text will go into more detail about these different principles if you're using PowerPoints or a similar type of visual. All right, and then the chapter kind of winds up with test-taking strategies. So the first thing is you should hopefully always know when a test is in a class, and then what type of test is it going to be, because you should prepare for them a little differently. So multiple choice test, here are some just basic strategies. Make sure that you cover up the answers while you read the entire question, and anticipate what the answer is. But make sure you read all the possible choices, eliminate the ones you know are absolutely wrong, and skip questions that are difficult, because if you spend too much time on one question, you may be missing time that you could be spending on other questions you know the answers to. Write on the exam if you're allowed to, and then only change your answer if you have a good reason. More often than not, we change a right answer to a wrong answer. So only change your answer if you know what, a question earlier really reminded me, and I know this question's wrong now. So only change if you have a good reason. Short answer and essay questions. You kind of want to approach these like you would a paper. You want to plan. You want to read the question carefully. You want to outline. You want to develop kind of your ideas, a conclusion, an introduction. Read the question again, proofread it. And so that does take more time, but you want to make sure that you're going into detail and really making sure that you're hitting what the prompt is. And then take home versus online exams. I think we all are familiar with like in-person testing. Sometimes there's a benefit to that. Some people like to feel that, okay, they're in this with other people, they're in it together. The teacher's right there for help, so that's an advantage. Whereas, take home and online exams, there's pros and cons to that as well. You want to know what to expect, prepare, only use sources that you're allowed to use. And then a big thing is, and I see this with my online students all the time, for instance, we have stuff due on Sunday nights. I sometimes will get an email Sunday night at 10:45, 11 o'clock, asking me questions about a particular assignment. I can't promise that I'm always going to respond that late. I'm sometimes still up working, but not every time. And so you want to make sure that you prepare and you plan enough in advance. All right, so that is chapter 5. And as always, I really do recommend that you go back through and read the chapter on your own, especially any components of that chapter that you feel like you really need to hone in on. All right, so the 2 assignments for this week, we're going to talk about the college resource reflection. This week you have a choice. So I put 3 services here. that you can choose from, and I want you to pick the one that maybe you could either benefit from, it sounds interesting, maybe you've utilized already. So I'm going to quickly go to each of those links. So let me go to this one first since it was linked first. The first one is Disability Support Services. So this is the office that maybe if you had an IEP in high school or a 504, or maybe there's another kind of issue going on with academics, or even I've had students where it's been a temporary issue, like they broke their arm and they need someone to take notes for them. This all falls under the category of disability support services. So here is their website, and they're going to have some different resources here, like, well, how do you become eligible for these services? What kind of accommodations would I get? What does that even mean? Some other connections across the state, and then it has some just general information about the disability support services and everyone who works in that office. So if this is interesting to you, I encourage you to kind of click around in here, or maybe you have experience working with the DSS office. That's your first option. Your second option is military services. So here's the military services page. So this would be maybe if you are a veteran, or maybe you're thinking about entering into one of the armed forces here, you can look and see, well, what kind of support do you have on campus? So there's a couple different links over here about military services, and then lots of resources about benefits and getting credit and financial aid opportunities. So lots of different information there, and you'll see a lot of these names over here are very similar to the DSS because they all work very closely together. It just kind of happens that those offices work together and intersect. So that's the military support services. And then the last one is the Stark State College Bookstore. I just thought, like, if you didn't already know about it, this is not the if any of you have been on campus, it's not the G bookstore at the beginning of the semester. This is like the main college bookstore. If you've not been on campus yet, you've not seen this. So this is why I wanted to kind of put this in as an option for you to kind of look around and see, okay, well, what exactly do they provide in here? Maybe you're in one of these fields that could benefit. Maybe you've not bought textbooks yet because some of your classes are OER, you bought one for here, hopefully, but some of your classes might be OER, so you're getting like that immediate free access, and so you don't have tons of experience with purchasing textbooks from the bookstore. And then hopefully by spring and summer, we're a little bit back to normal, so you might be on campus more, so you can kind of look and see what do they have to offer there. So you are going to choose one of those three and just talk about why you chose it. What was your reasoning for choosing your particular choice, what you learned, and how you could use that resource. Again, please don't just do a summary. Like, I know about these offices, so always bring it back to you personally. All right, the second and last assignment for this week has to do with the academic integrity topic we talked about in the PowerPoint called You Be the Judge. So there's two documents there. You're going to open those. One of them is your actual assignment here, which is in a Word document. You're going to see that there are 4 cases, and they're really quick cases. There's 4 cases there for each case. So you're going to answer all 3 questions for case 1, all 3 questions for case 2, case 3, case 4. You're going to tell me, was there an infraction? If so, what was the infraction? Meaning, was there any kind of cheating or plagiarism going on in this case? If so, and you can tell me you don't believe so, that's okay. But if so, question 2, what should the student have done differently? Maybe you don't think there was an infraction, but the student could have done things differently. That's what you're answering, number 2. And then number 3, what should the consequence be, if any? So consequence meaning, should they just be given a warning? Should they fail the assignment? Should they be dismissed from the college? That's what you're doing for each of those. And how you do that is up to you. If you want to answer, and then go ahead and answer underneath each one, or if you want to down here, like case 1, and then it's totally up to you. Some people create a brand new document and do it in there. It's just really your preference. To help you, this is the PDF. Here is from the college's Policies and Procedures Manual. This is all about academic honesty and integrity. So if you wanted to use this as an assistance, it defines like plagiarism and cheating, and then here's even some more: fabrication, facilitating academic dishonesty, unauthorized collaboration. So it goes into depth with quite a few things. And then how a staff member would kind of go through those processes if they determine that someone has committed one of those infractions. And then what happens? What kind of penalties would they face? So you might be able to rely on that document to help you kind of inform your own answers here. And then when you're done, you'll just click in there and submit. Okay. All right, so that is week 11, chapter 5. You are looking through chapter 5, completing the You Be the Judge assignment and the college resource reflection. You choose which one of these you want to look at. Your assignments will count for week 11 attendance, so both assignments will earn you full credit. Only completing one will earn you half attendance points in terms of that credit. All right, hope everyone has a great week 11. Bye.